Professor Schwab, welcome to CCTV News.
Great pleasure to be here again.
Fourth industrial revolution. Usually industrial revolution has to be able to raise the living standards of people continuously for decades if it claims to be industrial revolution. So is this likely to be the case?
Yes, certainly, for several reasons. First, we will have technologies like robotization, three-dimensional printing and so on, which will ultimately increase productivity and in such a way contribute to higher living standards, to GDP growth. But we also have new products like products in the health industry, research results from from our brain pattern and so on, which will create richer lives, richer not only in economic terms, but in terms of being able to communicate better. So I foresee a great potential to increase our living standards and our life satisfaction through the means of the fourth industrial revolution.
In your book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, you keep on arguing about the case for the specific evolution. You specifically mention it's going to increase the interconnectedness of the world. But Professor Schwab, many have pointed out over the past few years, there has been an anti-globalization trend and anti-regionalization trend as well. For example, being reflected by Brexit not long ago. What do you make of it?
I regret very much because we definitively have here a contradiction. On the one hand, we are living in a more and more interconnected world, in a world which becomes a global village, where we depend each on another. But we also have to recognize that the pace of change is so fast that many people have difficulties to cope with the change and therefore have a great level of anxiety. And this leads to some kind of a rejection of what's going on in the world. So I would say the Brexit vote was also a sign of deglobalization, of renationalization. We absolutely have to fight those tendencies, and we have to do so by explaining the people better that we are really interdependent, that change is not something we have to be afraid of, but change is something which we should embrace because it offers us new opportunities, and particularly it offers us the opportunity for better lives.
But talking about the we, who are the we you are talking about, Professor Schwab? You can see worldwide the politicians are losing their ultimate trust coming from the people, and also the grace of a generation of politicians with huge authority like those after the Second World War. So they are not the one likely to work anymore. So who are the we are we talking about here?
I think also the Brexit vote and other developments in the world show that the elite is absolutely under the obligation to explain better to everybody what's going on and not to lose touch with the realities. But I'm optimistic because when I talk to the young generation, and the World Economic Forum has embraced very much in many ways the young generation, I see a generation which is much more globally oriented, which is much more socially oriented, which is much more oriented towards solidarity, global solidarity. And even if you look at the British vote, it was a young generation which wanted to stay in the European Union, and it was the old, the fearful generation.
The one who passed already 50 years old.
Exactly.
But at the same time, when we are talking about the younger generation, of course, people would argue the young people here at the World Economic Forum really are the top of the cream of their societies. It is not the elites that is the problem, it's rather how to explain to the general public that is really the issue here.
Yes, but you see also the fourth industrial revolution provides the means to every young person to leapfrog into this new world. I was, before coming here to Tianjin, I was in Shenzhen, and I heard that in Shenzhen there are over 2 million entrepreneurs. So if we create the right environment, we can give to every young people the capability and to equip him with the tools not to lose out in this new world, to much to the contrary, to carve out for him or herself a situation where he is better off than previous generations.
Politicians these days, what they are thinking about mainly is about the party politics and the election politics, and also nationalism that are rising all over the world, that they want to take advantage of this tide. They are politicians themselves. So once again, all of these wonderful causes and ways of doing things, who would likely to be the main character pushing them forward? Professor Schwab.
No, we have two major problems at the world at the moment. The first is that we are thinking in silos. We lose, in a very complicated world, the overall perspective, the grand picture. That's one challenge which we have. The other challenge is that political leaders, with the exception of some countries, are too much absorbed by crisis management. Just look at what's now happening or will be happening in Europe. How much energy is absorbed by sorting out the mess created by the Brexit decision. So here I feel the World Economic Forum has a particularly important role to remind the world first that we need collaboration. Not only collaboration amongst the different countries, but that big issues can be only solved through cooperation between political leaders, business, and civil society, and I underline, and the young people. Here, with what we are doing, also here, I think is very essential to close those gaps.
The World Economic Forum started from Europe, and of course it's becoming such an international organization and also international events every year. But still, people think about WEF, they think about Europe. With Brexit opening the page, how important will Europe be? Many would really wonder.
First, the World Economic Forum has been recognized officially as an international organization. So we are truly international. And even if I look at our members and our constituents, Europe is only 1/3. I think we have very well created a situation of global integration with 1/3 Europe, 1/3 Asia, 1/3 the US, and the rest of.
Great balance, I have to say.
It's becoming more balanced. But Europe, of course, I'm European, and for me, Europe was a great vision. Never have war again in Europe. I think this will be not the case. Maybe we will have economic wars, but not real wars anymore. But I'm not so pessimistic. I think there's now a lot of noise. We should not forget 48% of the British, and particularly the young generation, wanted to stay in the European Union. I think not everything is perfect in the European Union. It's also a wake-up call to rethink the whole concept of the European Union. And the World Economic Forum is already inviting leading European politicians and thinkers to come together to see what reform processes are necessary to avoid a situation as we have seen, and to make people enthusiastic again about Europe.
But will there be domino effect politically? The collapse of Europe, as they argue?
It could be, but if we draw the conclusions and if we make Europe much more flexible I think
Flexible meaning?
flexible means we have to make it means that there are different options, like we have shown with the Eurozone. So maybe a common defense union and so on. So not everybody may be ripe to embrace everything. So we have to build Europe step by step. And my experience out of the last 50 years, 60 years is Europe always goes one step back, but afterwards 2 steps forward.
It seems to be true for many countries and regions.
Exactly. It's a way of life.
Also, another very interesting thing that you argue in the book is the division of labor between, the system, the government, the industry and business world, and also the civil society. Many are wondering what should be the responsibilities these days of politicians and governments, and what should be the responsibilities of the general public. For example, when a referendum is being used. Professor Schwab, this is an organization based on grassroots participation with top of the cream of the world. So what do you make of this interesting question?
I think politicians still have to be in the lead because particularly in the fourth industrial revolution, we need regulatory frameworks. We need regulatory frameworks on a global level. We need principles. We need, if possible, common values, because that's the best base to create afterwards a solid framework for cooperation. It's very important also to understand that business at the end is a driver of economic progress, so it has its own role. And finally, civil society today is more important than ever before because it's the people on the ground which provide at the end the legitimacy. So we have to create a strong not only coordination but collaboration between those 3 pillars of society. And here I think the World Economic Forum has been at the forefront of bringing those 3 sections together. And in the new world of the fourth industrial revolution, we need new rules, we need principles. For example, how do we create the norms for genetic engineering? How do we create the norms for automatic traffic? I could go on. How do we need the norms for drones? And all this needs global norms. And I see the role of the World Economic Forum very important in helping to set those norms.